What's up, Taiwan? I'm Ethan Liu with 10 minutes of news from here in Taiwan and around the world. The world's largest contract chipmaker TSMC says it will continue investing in Japan. That comes as Japan attempts to recapture its global semiconductor market share in the coming years. Leslie Liao has the details.
Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio hosted a meeting with the heads of 7 of the world's largest semiconductor companies. Mark Liu, chair of Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, was among them. TSMC is the world's largest contract chip maker. It's building its first chip plant in Japan in southern Kumamoto Prefecture. The facility broke ground in April last year, well before the meeting with Kishida. So the company already considers Japan a viable place for business. There's been speculation about a second TSMC plant in Japan, though the company has yet to confirm anything. But Liu said in a statement that TSMC will continue investing in Japan for the longevity of the semiconductor manufacturing sector. The meeting comes as Japan seeks to revitalize its domestic semiconductor industry. The country once held 50% market share. Now that figure sits at 10%.
日本在那个化学材料跟晶圆厂的制造设备这一部分，在全世界是非常具有影响力的。他当然是希望能够邀请全球的半导体大厂到日本投资，然后强化日本在国际上的国际竞争力。
Other semiconductor heavyweights like Intel, Micron, Applied Materials, and Samsung were all at the meeting with Kishida. TSMC is just one piece of Japan's puzzle to once again become a semiconductor powerhouse. John Su and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Meanwhile, Taiwan and the United States have finished negotiating the first part of a major trade pact. On Thursday, U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai announced the update to the U.S.-Taiwan Initiative on 21st Century Trade. The initial agreement will cover terms related to customs and trade facilitation, good regulatory practices, and regulation of services. Other areas include anti-corruption and small and medium-sized enterprises. While the pact is expected to strengthen economic ties between the two countries, it will still fall short of Taiwan's long-term goal of signing a bilateral free trade agreement with the U.S.
我们非常高兴，台美之间可以这么快速的就完成前5个议题的这个谈判。
A series of bomb threats have been reported in Taiwan, targeting libraries, banks, museums, and a university in different parts of the country. While the threats have not yet resulted in any credible danger, police believe the incidents could be connected and possibly the work of a Chinese individual. Jeremy Olivier has more details.
Taiwan is generally viewed as a safe place to live and visit. Among a population of 24 million, violent crime and acts of terror are rare. That makes a recent series of emailed bomb threats highly unusual. The threats have targeted several locations around the country, mostly popular tourist spots. The latest 2 threats on Thursday targeted a botanical garden in northern Taiwan and a zoo in the southern city of Kaohsiung. The mayor of Kaohsiung was quick to condemn the threat.
非常的要不得，也妨碍社会的这个公共秩序。那我也要求我们的警察局尽速的惩凶。
Kaohsiung police say they've traced the source of the threat they received to an IP address in the United States, but they say the suspect could be hiding their real location with a VPN. Authorities in Taiwan's largest city, New Taipei, say the person behind the emails could be a Chinese national who was previously a student in Taiwan. He's suspected of sending out over 200 similar threats to people in Taiwan after returning to China 2 years ago. Legislators on Thursday asked the Deputy Justice Minister what the government is doing about the growing number of incidents. The concern is that Taiwan and China are no longer working together to combat crime.
他不配合我们有什么应运作为？就有一些困难点的地方了哈，就两边的配合就涉及到两岸的这个互动关系。好，那基本上呢，我们是透过各种管道都会在处理中了。
Taiwan and China have a criminal justice agreement, but Chen says this is only effective if they have the cooperation of authorities in China. They currently don't. Taiwan's government is continuing to investigate the threats, but if the suspect is located in China, they could have a hard time bringing him to justice. Klein Wang and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan recently announced it will have a carbon trading system up and running by the middle of the year. The government hopes it will help reduce industrial greenhouse gas emissions. To learn more about the plan, Sally Jensen spoke to Shi Wenzhen, a professor at National Zhengzhi University's Department of International Business.
A carbon credit system would allow companies that emit less greenhouse gases to trade credits or offsets with those that emit more. And the goal is to encourage industry to slash its planet heating emissions. Can you explain a bit more, please?
So the baseline credit system is what the main carbon offset system use to, if you have these carbon offsets, you can offset your own emissions. So they can be used by companies for compliance purposes, or they can be used for voluntary, like net zero pledges. That's the baseline credit system, basic operation of that system.
And in Taiwan, who is eligible to participate in the carbon credit exchange?
Because the scheme has been implemented in Taiwan for several years, and currently there are more than 90 registered projects already. In terms of eligible applicants, for those that are going to be charged with carbon fee, currently they are not eligible to apply for this type of carbon credit project, but the policy might change.
And how similar is Taiwan's carbon trading platform to other countries?
It's quite different from the cap and trade system that we've seen, for example, in the European Union. But in terms of the process, in terms of the spirit of having a comparison with conservative baseline and the actual emission, and having to meet the requirement of additionality, all these essential elements would be very similar, either across countries or within, the international voluntary carbon market aspect.
So will the system actually help Taiwan reduce its greenhouse gas emissions?
Well, if your question is that whether the carbon credit system in Taiwan would help us to meet our own national net zero goal as stipulated in the Climate Change Response Act, the question might not be yes, because the system is not designed for that purpose.
Then what do you think the carbon credit scheme needs to make sure it works?
From your questions, there are two answers. The first one is that the system is only a supplement, and you have to, reduce the emission by your own effort. And the second aspect is that since you're using them as a supplemental tools, and since you use them to offset emissions, you have to make sure that it comes from a genuine good project with all the robust accounting and verification requirement to make sure that it really can represent a 1 ton of CO2 emissions that are being offsetted.
And that was Sally Jensen talking to Professor Shi Wenzhen from NCCU about Taiwan's proposed carbon credit trading market. And Taiwan's annual rainy season, known as the plum rains, has officially begun. A wet weather front has brought much awaited rainfall to the country. Plum rains typically fall from mid-May to mid-June every year, and Taiwan has been experiencing a historic drought. The rain's sudden arrival now has caused floods in some western areas. That's because drought has hardened the soil, making floods more likely when the rain finally comes. Farmers had hoped the plum rains will alleviate water shortages, but experts are worried that long-term climate instability means this year's plum rains may not be as reliable as in the past.
今年有可能会走到一个非常极端的，可能就是空梅，就是没有典型的梅雨锋面，大概在6月的时候来台湾。
Thank you for watching today's What's Up Taiwan. Finally, we leave you with images of animals at the Sumida Aquarium in Tokyo, Japan. I'm Ethan Liu, and I'll see you next time.